it's inevitable. Jamaica will reach a stage where we have films on the international market.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have films that are making massive profits, but it's not just about the monetary gains.
Yeah.
It's also about the development of our industry,
the development of our people, the promotion and the preservation of our culture,
development of the discipline as a viable source of living.
And it's funny you mention international, because one of my favorite elements of Jamaica in terms of as a location for film is the diversity. A lot of persons don't necessarily consider this because, you know, you're so used to Jamaica about the beaches. When you see content coming out of Jamaica, it's either about tourism or the beaches or, you know,
aesthetics.
And then you have the flip side where you have a gangland type movie, you know, about crime in the inner city, you know, rural areas. But a lot of persons may not know that Jamaica has one of the most diverse topographies in the hemisphere, if not the world. Welcome to our listeners, lovers of film, lovers of art, and to all the creatives across Jamaica, the Caribbean, and the world. My name is Russell Thompson, and you're listening to The Perfect Place to Make a Movie, part of the Voices of Jamaica podcast series made possible by the Alpha School of Music with support from the Public Affairs Office from the U.S. Embassy, Kingston. As I said, I'm Russell Thompson, film rookie, producer, associate producer, definitely not a director, and just lover of film. You know, I've been in the industry for about 4 years. I have some guests here with me, and these guys are actually the ones that introduced me to the industry, so I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves.
What up, everybody? I'm Joshua, writer-director. I've been in the business for over 7 years now. And, of course, you know, when you work in film in Jamaica, you're not just a writer-director, you know, a little bit of everything. But I've gathered quite a bit of exposure in the industry, and I'm excited to talk with my fellow friends here today about film.
Hey, blessings. My name is Saeed. I am what the young people call it, multi-hyphenate. Similar to Joshua, with the experience of making films in Jamaica, you kind of have to learn a little of everything. So, I mean, I've done nearly everything from sound, straight back to producing, writing, directing, and I'm just a lover of culture and a lover of film on a whole. So excited about this.
All right. So, as mentioned earlier, today's discussion is the perfect place to make a movie. And, you know, you guessed right, we're talking about Jamaica. So, guys, as I don't know, are we experts in the industry? Can we say we're experts? Or we're still growing, right? We're still growing, right?
No, I definitely, when you define the word expert, you know, usually you think of professional, you think 10,000 hours, right? Yeah. I think we passed that bill at this point. Okay. So it's safe to say that we have a little wealth of knowledge that we can, you know, let off to the audiences, to the listeners. I mean, for me personally, when you think about ideal place to shoot a film, one of the big things about Jamaica is beautiful sceneries, location. You know, when you think aesthetic, that is Jamaica in a nutshell. Yeah. And then, of course, you know, I'm sure, you know, Saeed and you as well, Russ, from the producing end, you'll talk a lot about some of the little loopholes, some of the little, you know, secret, you know, getaways and secret freebies that we can get in Jamaica in comparison to elsewhere. But yeah, I think overall Jamaica's industry is building. Mm-hmm. You know, it's at a stage now where it's young and there's a lot of young creatives that are on the scene. And I think it's just to take it a step from there now to really kind of refine it, you know?
And help develop it and grow into an industry that, you know, we can all benefit from. And, you know, eventually, you know, we can look at it and measure its economic impact.
Definitely, because I mean, look at the James Bond film recently. Yeah, like, I watched it in cinemas. Yeah, man, seeing Jamaica on the big screen, like you're like, yo, every time. Yeah,
no, I had to nudge myself and be like, oh, this is Portland.
You see, like every time, it's beautiful, man, and it looks good on screen. Yeah, but then that alone isn't film. Yeah, you know, you think film now, we're thinking, what's the groundwork that you have to do beforehand? What's the permits you have to get? What's the infrastructure like? You know, how do you get a crew together to effectively bring forth an idea? Yes. Yeah. Do we have like talent in regards to on-screen with cast in Jamaica? These are questions that I think should be on our minds every day.
And I'll add to that. For me, you know, I wouldn't credit myself as a writer or, you know, a writer extraordinary just yet, but I'm a storyteller. And for me, you know, when you develop your stories or you create your stories in your mind and you actually consider making a film, you need a venue, you need a location, you need a geographic space that, you know, brings your story to life for the viewers on the screen.
Yeah.
You know?
I think what's good about this podcast, Russ, is that you have like 3 specialists in varying aspects of production. Because I know like Saeed will talk about himself, but Saeed started from the audio end and then worked his way to like head producer. Yeah. And then, you know, you look at me, I'm like a little creative, but I know some technical as well, you know, writer, director, but it's like, you know, a little bit of everything. Yeah. And then we have you know, you've been inducted into the industry through us as well with Kinto. I think Kinto was one hell of a project, you know, like I think back to those days with that film and it feels like a lifetime ago.
And even I watched it the other day and I was like, whoa, we made that film, and like us looking from the inside out, you know, we know what limited resources we had, and then when people see that movie, they're like, "Wow, how did you guys do this?" Like they're so enamored about the outlay on the screen, you know, the acting, the visuals, you know, the cinematography, and I mean,
just to give perspective to the listeners, so Kinto was my second film. So I don't know, I think it was Saeed's first as a producer. I may be wrong. Russell was associate producer, and man, though the budget wasn't as big as we wanted, we really kind of pulled some strings to make it work. It's like a young street boy that got mugged in the streets, and then came across a car crash one night. We should definitely drop a plug for it, even though it was made so many years ago, you know?
Always. I mean, that's what this space is for, you know? Mm-hmm. I mean, real friends, REEL, you know? I mean, that's we were friends before, but, you know, that's what really helped to cement the relationship and, you know, just understanding how to work off each other's energy, you know, coming across a different set of people, a variety of people, learning how to manage personalities, energies, you know, even being on set, like you as a director, you will do your storyboard and, you know, you have the scenes and the shots all laid out, but being on set now and, you know, having to speak and interact with the actors and saying, hey, you know, like this is the type of emotion we need to be represented on screen.
Yeah.
You know, talk a little bit more about that for us.
Well, I think, again, when you're looking at directing, by right, directors, their job is really to kind of bring forth a specific vision to a project, and to make that project something which the audiences can understand. They can understand the essence of the story. They can feel the essence from that director. One of the big things is directors are supposed to kind of allow for actors a platform to express themselves in a realistic and authentic way. I think one of like every director's favorite word is organic. You know, when you want like proper performances, you want organic performances. You want, you see them on screen and they're believable. They're like identifiable.
And the moviegoers can tell.
Yeah, exactly. They can tell when a performance is organic from when it's not. Yeah. So that's why as a director now, you're trained to basically bring forth that realness within, you know, a human being. You know, it's like, hey, I'm working with you now. We're working together. It's a collaboration. Just because I'm called director doesn't mean I'm going to boss anybody around. It's more like, hey, what do you have that you can bring to the table to really kind of bring forth that essence that can get the audiences engaged? Yeah. I think one thing about films and making films is that we have to remember that one of the key things is that we're trying to engage a group of people. We're trying to engage every viewer that comes across this film, whether positively, negatively. We want them to be engaged. We want them to be immersed. We want them to. You want to provoke thought and entertain. You know, that's our job. But I think I'd love to hear from Saeed's perspective in regards to like our industry now. Like, what do you think? Do you think it's ideal? Like, how, talk about infrastructure.
Let's jump into that.
Talk about, because there's so many things apart from just directing and creating. Yeah. Right, which I can talk more and I can, bore you guys for hours on that. But like, what's our infrastructure like? What is it like? Pros and cons. What do you think?
I think generally speaking, the biggest pros of shooting in Jamaica are you have a very talented production crew, the locations that's available to you, and I think generally the people and the culture is an amazing film culture to come into and work with. And we are very helpful and we are also very accommodating. And as disorganized as it may seem sometimes, I can tell you that based on how accommodating we are, a lot of people don't even realize that. So I think those are the biggest pros. Cons to touch on you would have said before, such as there are no like tax incentives. There's a lack of infrastructure within certain things. If you don't know who to speak to, and really and truly, every country you go to, you should have a line producer or somebody to liaise with. But if you don't have that person, it might be difficult for you to get around, especially because it is a different culture and we do speak technically a different language and we do operate a little bit differently. So, I mean, I think those would be the cons. So a foreigner. But I mean, historically, Jamaica has been executing films for years. So I would say one of the strengths that we have is actually just the execution of our production. Where I think we are weak is from content development from our own content, because we wouldn't have been writing and we wouldn't have been editing. We would have just been executing.
Yeah. I'd like to touch on that, Saeed. Yeah. In terms of the content development, touch on that a bit more for me. Tell us a bit more of how can we develop that? How can we improve that in our industry?
And even before Saeed even answers that, I think our listeners, do they have like the working knowledge of production? Because Saeed mentioning some real terms, like when you think line production and you know, just like correspondence when you're working with like the respective crew members as to who's to guide, who's to allow for our crew to thrive. You know, if our listeners aren't seasoned or know about film, you know, a lot of these terms are important. You think, again, it boils down to our infrastructure. It boils down to the team. Yeah. You know, line producing is a hell of a thing when you're thinking of someone that is managing budget sheets and is managing a crew in terms of just different logistics. So, yeah, definitely, Say you can talk on that. You can answer Russell's question.
Russell, repeat your question.
All right, so I was just asking, you said one of the issues or the cons, you know, of the space locally is, you know, our content development, because we do have a lot of stories to tell, but it's just about us consistently pushing out these stories.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I'd say firstly, we as a people and we as a culture, we are more, we are orators.
Okay.
And we're not necessarily writers.
Okay.
And
I like that.
And most things from film starts with what is written. So therefore, we would thrive in music, but wouldn't necessarily thrive in film. So I think already, coming from that historical context, we're a little bit set back. Yeah. But, I mean, it also is in relation to the context of economy and the fact that we wouldn't have had a particular budget to do our own content. Funnily enough, I saw a tweet the other day. That in the 80s, we were the last set of people to get colored television.
What?
Yes, it was Chin. Michael Lee Chin, brother.
Okay. Wayne Chen.
Okay, yeah. So he tweeted that, and it was just like, that puts so much into context as to how we've been developed and what we're able to do now. And it's almost like we're playing catch up in a way with our own content. Yeah. So that definitely puts it into context. Well, I mean, we're improving for sure when you have brilliant people like Joshua, who has taken the craft and kind of made it his own. And I mean, you have no organizations like JAFTA, who and Jampro, who have been doing great work in terms of the pipeline. So meaning the creation, the writing, going into the producing of it, which we would have already understood.
Yeah. That assistance, in the development stage of a film and even developing our talents in the various areas.
Russell, that's a big talking point because we're graced with the JAFTA president.
No, I need to give this guy an intro. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you Mr. Saeed Thomas, the newly minted, about 2-3 months, president of the Jamaica Film and Television Association.
Cue applause. No, but that's insane. Like what Saeed is saying, like we listed out pros and cons, but some of the big things we have to look at is that the industry is growing. We have these organizations that are working. JAFTA has done like phenomenal in regards to just allowing for young creatives to thrive. Yeah. They've given young creatives money and not just money, but workshops, actually curating, actually, structurally building the craft.
I'd like to even add another element to that. Outside of even what JAFTA does specifically in terms of the funding and the workshops, I would like to give JAFTA some props, because I even entered a JAFTA competition once, and it wasn't necessarily for the funding. It was just because of the type of competition that it was. I said, let me test out my writing skills, and that was actually the first script I've ever written. And Josh, I reached out to you to direct the film as well, and just even having that opportunity to apply for me, and it was just so amazing and refreshing to be able to write a script and look back and say, wow. Because I'm no fantastic writer, but looking back, I was like, wow, I wrote this.
Yeah.
So, we'll have to give...
There's motivation. Yeah. Pushed you to do something. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like JAFTA is now allowing for young creatives to make films, giving money to make films, 4 or 5 films a year. Mm-hmm. I don't know, Saeed can tell us if they're going to have Propeller again coming up. Mm-hmm. It's a huge thing. But, it's and that's what we need. We need more. I think it's just, you learn best by doing. Yeah, and the more that we have our local creatives working within the field, working on the craft, is the better the craft will become. Yeah. And in Jamaica, it's inevitable. Jamaica will reach a stage where we have films on the international market. Mm-hmm. We're gonna have films that are making massive profits, but it's not just about the monetary gains. Yeah. It's also about the development of our industry.
The development of our people, the promotion and the preservation of our culture.
Development of the discipline as a viable source of living.
And it's funny you mention international, because one of my favorite elements of Jamaica in terms of as a location for film is the diversity. A lot of persons don't necessarily consider this, because you're so used to Jamaica about the beaches. When you see content coming out of Jamaica, it's either about tourism or the beaches or
aesthetics.
And then you have the flip side where you have a gangland type movie, about crime in the inner city, rural areas. But a lot of persons may not know that Jamaica has one of the most diverse topographies in the hemisphere, if not the world. Yeah. Because when you look at it, remember the other day we went to Blue Mountain, and if you were to Google Scotland,
basically the same scenery,
practically the same thing, because it was practically grey. The fog started rising from about 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and it just didn't feel like Jamaica.
This is my ending point here, Russ, where what you're saying, rather than limit ourselves to the stereotypes of Jamaica, where you're looking at whether excessive gangsterism, or you're looking at typical beach, the typical cinematic aesthetics.
Fall in love, come to Jamaica on a vacation and fall in love with a Rasta man.
Instead of those stereotypes, I think I want it to be a case where we now challenge ourselves as creatives to build this in the industry and to look for those stories that Jamaica has, because the reality is that Jamaica has a plethora of stories. Yeah, we do. And it's just there to be discovered. Yeah. Even one of the most prolific, Steve McQueen, who's working on a Caribbean-based film. Mm-hmm. He said it himself, stories out here, the sand in the, in the beach. Yeah. So it's just for us to kind of dig it out and work on it, capitalize on it. So that's my ending now. I don't know, Saeed and Russ, you guys can end the show here now.
Saeed, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, what I would say is any foreigner listening to this, feel free to always come to Jamaica. Feel free to reach out to any producer or line producer. We're always open to execute your ideas. Sure. And all creatives listening to this as well, just keep on creating. Jamaica, I know sometimes funding is hard to come by, but Jamaica is a place where you can just get a group of your friends together, 3 of us here, real friends, and just try your thing and try your luck, and you might just be successful,
All right. As I'll just reiterate what my 2 friends here said, when you look at Jamaica, the makeup of the Jamaican space, the infrastructure might not be 100% developed, but, as Jamaicans, we always find positives. We always find the best ways to work out a situation. Saeed mentioned, just how warm and welcoming we are as a people. These things help to contribute to the industry and the development of the industry. Jamaica has a plethora of talent. We have actors, we have production crews, we have audio teams, we have directors, writers, producers, we have the venues. The government offers waivers when you're importing equipment. That is one of the steps that we need to take as a country to help develop the industry, help grow the industry, and help to preserve the industry, and not just the industry, but the culture. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Russell Thompson. You're listening to The Perfect Place to Make a Movie, part of the Voices of Jamaica podcast series made possible by the Alpha School of Music with support from the Public Affairs Office from the U.S. Embassy, Kingston. Good night.
For more information about the Voices of Jamaica and the stories they tell, please visit the Alpha School of Music website, alphamusicja.com, and click on the Voices of Jamaica link.